Jungkook panicked when Taehyung appeared to be seriously hurt after an unexpected fall during a fictional dance practice scenario involving the BTS members. What began as an ordinary rehearsal quickly became an emotional moment filled with fear, confusion, and unanswered questions. Was Taehyung seriously injured? Why did the situation escalate so quickly? And what went through Jungkook's mind when he realized that his friend might need immediate medical attention? Before we continue, if you are an ARMY who cares about Jungkook and Taehyung, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments what you would do if you were standing in Jungkook's position when someone you cared about suddenly collapsed. Your reaction could be different from everyone else's, so stay with the story until the final moment, because the biggest surprise may not be the fall itself, but what happened after Taehyung was taken away. The practice room had started like countless other rehearsal sessions. Music filled the space. The members were focused on their choreography. Every movement had to be synchronized, every formation had to be precise, and every transition had to happen at exactly the right moment. For performers at BTS's level, even a few seconds of choreography can require hours of repetition. Jungkook was completely absorbed in the rehearsal. His attention was on the music, the formation, and the movements around him. Taehyung was also concentrating on the routine. Nothing about the beginning of the rehearsal suggested that the atmosphere would soon become frightening. Then came the moment nobody expected. During a transition in the choreography, Taehyung suddenly lost his balance. At first, it may have looked like a minor mistake, a misstep, a moment of imbalance. Something that could happen to any performer during an exhausting rehearsal. But then Taehyung went down. The music stopped. The room changed instantly. And Jungkook's reaction was immediate. He turned toward Taehyung with an expression of shock, as though his mind needed several seconds to understand what his eyes were seeing. Taehyung? The name seemed to come out before Jungkook could even think. He moved toward him. The other members also stopped what they were doing, but Jungkook appeared especially alarmed. The choreography no longer mattered. The music no longer mattered. The rehearsal schedule no longer mattered. There was only Taehyung on the floor. For a performer accustomed to continuing through mistakes, pain, fatigue, and pressure, the sight was deeply unsettling. Jungkook crouched near him and tried to understand what had happened. Taehyung appeared disoriented by the sudden fall. The members asked whether he could move and whether he was experiencing severe pain. Someone called for staff. The room, which moments earlier had been filled with music and movement, became filled with anxious voices. Jungkook kept looking at Taehyung. His face had changed. There was no stage expression now. No performance smile. No playful reaction. Only concern. The fear became more obvious when Taehyung struggled to get up. Jungkook immediately seemed to realize that this was not simply a choreography mistake. Don't move too quickly. The rehearsal staff approached. The members gave Taehyung space while remaining nearby. The situation became more serious when it was decided that Taehyung should receive medical evaluation. That decision created another wave of anxiety. A hospital. Those words can instantly change the way people understand an injury. Even when the final diagnosis is unknown, being transported for medical evaluation means the situation deserves attention. Jungkook appeared unable to hide his concern. He followed closely as staff prepared to take Taehyung out of the practice area. And that was when the emotional weight of the moment seemed to hit him. What if Taehyung was seriously injured? What if the fall had caused something more serious than anyone initially realized? What if he could not continue rehearsing? What if the injury affected upcoming performances? But beneath all those professional concerns was something much simpler. Jungkook was worried about Taehyung. That distinction matters. In reality, recent reporting in August 2026 has documented health concerns involving both members. But those reports describe different circumstances. Yonhap reported on August 12 that Taehyung had discussed receiving hospital treatment for a hearing problem. while Jungkook discussed an ongoing shin injury involving inflammation and possible stress-related bone damage. Yonhap News Agency. Those real health updates may make a fictional story like this feel especially believable to fans, but they should not be confused with evidence that Taehyung was actually rushed to a hospital after falling during dance practice. Still, imagine the emotional scene. The doors opened. Staff moved quickly. Taehyung was prepared for transportation. For a few seconds, he seemed frozen between wanting to help and knowing that professionals needed to take control. That helplessness can be terrifying. When someone close to you is injured, there is often a moment when you realize that there is nothing you can personally do to fix the situation. You can ask if they are okay. You can hold their hand. You can stay beside them. But you cannot control what happens next. For Jungkook, that moment seemed especially difficult. He had spent years performing beside Taehyung. They had shared rehearsals, concerts, travel, laughter, difficult schedules, exhaustion, and countless moments away from the stage. Now, instead of worrying about choreography, Jungkook was worrying about whether Taehyung was going to be okay. As Taehyung was taken toward the vehicle, Jungkook reportedly remained visibly distressed within this fictional narrative. The others tried to reassure him. But reassurance does not always work immediately. When fear takes over, the mind keeps returning to the same question. Is he going to be okay? Jungkook looked toward the vehicle. Taehyung was being taken away for medical attention. The distance between them suddenly felt much greater than it actually was. The rehearsal room was still there. The mirrors were still there. The speakers were still there. The choreography was still written down. But none of it seemed important anymore. The only thing that mattered was the person leaving the room. Jungkook reportedly asked for updates. He wanted to know where Taehyung was going. He wanted to know whether someone would stay with him. He wanted to know how serious the situation was. And perhaps most importantly, he wanted to know when he would be able to see him again. That emotional reaction is what gives this fictional scenario its strongest dramatic element. It is not the fall itself. It is the uncertainty afterward. A fall lasts seconds. Fear can last hours. The members waited for information. Every notification felt important. Every passing minute seemed longer than the one before. Then came an unexpected message. Taehyung was receiving medical attention. The initial evaluation was underway. There was still no reason to assume the worst. But the uncertainty remained. Jungkook's breathing seemed to settle slightly. He had not stopped worrying, but at least Taehyung was no longer alone. And then another thought entered his mind. The rehearsal. The upcoming schedule. The performances. Everything had been planned around precision. But health does not follow a schedule. A body can suddenly say no. A single misstep can force everyone to stop. For artists who spend years training themselves to continue despite exhaustion, accepting that reality can be difficult. Jungkook knew this. Taehyung knew this. The other members knew it too. And perhaps that was why the moment felt so emotional. BTS's performances depend on physical strength, coordination, stamina, and concentration. Dance rehearsals can be demanding, particularly when choreography is repeated again and again. Yet the human body has limits. No performance is more important than someone's health. That lesson seemed to echo through the fictional scene. Jungkook, who moments earlier had been dancing beside Taehyung, was now waiting for news. The contrast was dramatic. 1 minute they were moving together. The next, one member was being taken away for medical evaluation. That is the kind of sudden change that can leave people emotionally shaken. And then came the moment Jungkook feared most. His phone rang. For a second, he did not answer. He looked at the screen. Everyone around him seemed to become quiet. Finally, he answered. The update was brief. Taehyung was being monitored. The medical team was evaluating him. There was no immediate confirmation of a catastrophic injury. Jungkook closed his eyes for a moment. Relief. But only partial relief. Because until Taehyung returned, the worry would remain. He asked whether he could visit. He wanted to be there. Not as a performer. Not as a celebrity. Not as someone standing in front of millions of fans. Just as Jungkook. A friend. A teammate. A person who did not want Taehyung to face a frightening moment alone. Hours seemed to pass slowly. Eventually, the atmosphere became calmer. The members continued waiting for news. The rehearsal had effectively ended. Nobody seemed interested in continuing. The music remained silent. And the choreography was forgotten. That silence said more than words could. It was a reminder that behind the spectacular performances audiences see on stage are human beings who can become frightened, exhausted, injured, and vulnerable. For fans, it is easy to see idols as almost untouchable. They perform under bright lights. They smile for cameras. They dance through difficult routines. They travel from country to country. They appear confident even when their schedules are demanding. But moments like this fictional scenario remind audiences that physical limits remain real. The story becomes even more emotional when Jungkook finally gets the chance to see Taehyung again. He enters quietly. Taehyung looks tired. Jungkook stops for a moment. There is no dramatic speech. No exaggerated reaction. Just a look between two people who understand how frightening the day has been. Jungkook asks how he feels. Taehyung gives a small answer. He is being monitored. He needs rest. He should not rush back into intense activity. Jungkook nods. For perhaps the first time that day, he can breathe normally. But instead of immediately talking about the performance schedule, he asks one simple question. Are you okay? That question carries everything. The fear. The uncertainty. The concern. The friendship. The relief. And the realization that no rehearsal is worth risking someone's health. Taehyung reassures him. Jungkook remains nearby. The two do not need a long conversation. Sometimes the strongest emotional moments happen without many words. A glance can say enough. A hand placed on someone's shoulder can say enough. Sitting quietly beside someone can say enough. And for Jungkook, simply knowing Taehyung was receiving proper care seemed to be enough to calm the panic that had taken over the rehearsal room. The fictional story could have ended there. But there was another twist. The next day, Jungkook returned to the practice room. The room looked exactly the same. The mirrors reflected the empty floor. The speakers waited for the next song. The choreography was still prepared. But something felt different. Jungkook looked toward the spot where Taehyung had fallen. He remembered the sound of the music stopping. He remembered the members rushing toward him. He remembered the fear. And then he realized something. Sometimes people do not understand how much someone means to them until something suddenly threatens to take that person away. It was not necessarily about romance. It was not about creating a dramatic fantasy. It was about friendship, teamwork, and the fear of losing someone who had shared an extraordinary part of your life. He had watched him smile on stage. He had watched him joke around backstage. He had watched him work through difficult rehearsals. But seeing him suddenly unable to continue was different. It made everything feel fragile. The incident also changed the way Jungkook viewed the rehearsal itself. Dance practice had always been about perfection. Every angle mattered. Every movement mattered. Every mistake was corrected. But now another principle mattered more. Safety. If something hurts, stop. If someone falls, check on them. If someone needs medical attention, get help. If the body says it cannot continue, listen. That may not be as dramatic as a concert performance, but it is far more important. The fictional narrative therefore becomes less about an accident and more about the human response to fear. Jungkook's panic is understandable because Taehyung is not simply another dancer in the room. He is someone with whom Jungkook has spent years sharing the extraordinary experience of being part of BTS. And when a familiar face suddenly becomes vulnerable, even the strongest person can become frightened. That is why the question at the center of this story remains powerful. What would you do if someone you cared about suddenly collapsed in front of you? Would you panic? Would you immediately call for help? Would you freeze? Or would you force yourself to stay calm because that person needed you? For Jungkook, the fictional answer is clear. His first instinct was to make sure Taehyung was safe. The choreography could wait. The schedule could wait. The cameras could wait. The fans could wait. Taehyung's health came first. And perhaps that is the most meaningful part of the story. In an entertainment industry where every minute can be scheduled, health remains unpredictable. A rehearsal can be postponed. A performance can be modified. A choreography can be changed. But an injury should never be ignored simply because a schedule demands perfection. The real August 2026 health reports surrounding BTS also reinforce why audiences should approach dramatic online claims carefully. Yonhap's report on August 12 described Taehyung discussing treatment for hearing difficulties and Jungkook discussing his own shin injury. Yonhap News Agency, those documented circumstances are separate from the fictional fall and hospital scenario presented here. That distinction is especially important in the age of viral fan content. A dramatic headline can spread within minutes. A short clip can be removed from its original context. A fan-created story can be mistaken for a real news report. And before long, a fictional scenario can look like a confirmed event. That is why this narrative should be understood as entertainment and fan fiction-style storytelling rather than a factual report claiming that Taehyung was actually rushed to a hospital after falling during BTS dance practice. Still, the emotional question remains real. Why does seeing a favorite artist in danger affect people so deeply? Perhaps because fans spend years watching these artists grow. They see their successes. They see their struggles. They celebrate their achievements. They worry when something appears wrong. They develop emotional connections to the stories surrounding the group. So when a fictional scenario places one member in danger and another member reacts with panic, the emotional response can feel surprisingly intense. Jungkook's fictional panic represents something many fans understand. The fear of seeing someone you care about suddenly hurt. The inability to control what happens next. The desperate hope that the situation is not as serious as it looks. And the enormous relief when you finally hear that the person is safe. That emotional journey is what makes this story compelling. Not the hospital. Not the accident. Not the dramatic headline. But the moment when fear turns into relief. The rehearsal room eventually becomes quiet again. The members begin to leave. Jungkook looks back one final time. He knows the choreography will be there tomorrow. He knows the schedule can be adjusted. He knows the stage can wait. And he knows that when Taehyung is ready, they will dance again. But this time, perhaps they will do it with a little more awareness of how quickly everything can change. The fictional incident becomes a reminder that behind every performance is a human story. Behind every synchronized movement are bodies that need rest. Behind every smile are people capable of fear. Behind every spectacular concert are countless hours of preparation. And behind the global image of BTS are 7 individuals who care about one another in ways that audiences can only partially see. That is why Jungkook's reaction becomes the emotional heart of the narrative. He did not panic because a performance had gone wrong. He panicked because Taehyung had fallen. There is a difference. The first is a professional problem. The second is personal. And in that frightening moment, the professional world disappeared. There was only concern for a friend. As the fictional story closes, Taehyung is resting under medical supervision. Jungkook is finally calmer. The members are waiting. The rehearsal has been postponed. The music is silent. But the silence no longer feels frightening. It feels like a pause. A reminder to breathe. A reminder to slow down. A reminder that sometimes the most important thing a person can do is simply stay beside someone they care about. And perhaps that is the unexpected message hidden beneath the dramatic headline. The real story is not about how terrifying a fall can be. It is about what happens when people choose compassion over pressure. It is about choosing health over schedules. It is about understanding that no performance is more valuable than a person's well-being. And for Jungkook, the fictional moment becomes something he will never forget. The moment the music stopped. The moment Taehyung fell. The moment fear took over. And the moment Jungkook realized that, no matter how big the stage becomes, some things will always matter more than the performance. So now the question goes to you. If you had been in that practice room when Taehyung suddenly fell, what would you have done? Would you have immediately run toward him? Would you have tried to keep everyone calm? Would you have called for medical help? Or would fear have made you freeze? Tell us your thoughts in the comments. And if this emotional fictional BTS story made you feel something, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and stay connected for more stories inspired by the powerful bond between Jungkook, Taehyung, and the members of BTS. Because sometimes the most unforgettable moments are not the ones that happen beneath the spotlight. Sometimes they happen when the music suddenly stops. Disclaimer: this content is a fictional, fan-made narrative created for entertainment purposes only. The story about Jungkook panicking after Taehyung allegedly fell during dance practice and being taken to the hospital is not presented as confirmed real news. It does not claim that this incident actually happened, nor does it represent an official statement from BTS, Big Hit Music, HYB, Jungkook, Taehyung, or any other related party. Any dialogue, reactions, events, or emotional moments described in the story are dramatized and created for storytelling purposes. Viewers are encouraged not to treat this narrative as factual information or use it as evidence of a real medical incident.